the newly appointed director of scouting for the Buffalo Sabres, been with the organization, but now promotion. And we say good morning and congratulations to Jeremiah. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks a lot, and I'm happy to be on with you guys.
Yeah, first time on with us? You've been on with us before, haven't you?
Yes, it was a number of years ago, and I think it was when I was with USA Hockey. I'm not sure, but I've been on before.
Did we lose him?
I
think I lost him. Riv, do you have him? Jeremiah, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, technical stuff, eh? Like we're doing this from home. So tell us, you got the news. When did you get the news? When did you know this was all happening?
This kind of came into fruition yesterday, and obviously a big change in the last week, and didn't know exactly how things would play out, but excited for the new challenge and to move forward. You guys got me?
We do now, yep.
Okay, what I was saying was it came into fruition in the last day. Obviously changes in the last week, and didn't really know how things would play out, but excited for the new role and to move forward.
So are you ready? I mean, and when I say that, tonight, big night, can we do something with you here? We're going to run the draft sim with you. Can we run the...
Before we run the draft simulator, don't lie to us, Jeremiah. How many times have you sat at home in the last little while and done the draft simulator?
You know what? I don't do it. I've never done one of them, and that's the
liar.
Liar. It's not a lie.
That's all right. We'll do it for you because we do it every day here on the Instigators. Super excited.
So here we go. Jeremiah, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Here we go. The Jeremiah... God. Down one. We're drafting 8th. So on your draft board, how many guys, if you get the 8th pick, how many guys do you know right now off the top of your head that are in that range? Because you've seen, is it safe to say that you've seen all these players with all your journeys through hockey and moving up to the position that you're in now? You've seen all these guys before?
Oh, I've seen a good chunk of them live, but we'll rely on our scouting staff and existing information as well as getting to work moving forward on kind of refining things a little bit. But we know exactly who would be within that range, and hopefully we're not moving in that direction. So I think you should probably do it again.
I'll run one more.
I've always been interested. Every year that the draft comes up every year, there's always the first thing that comes to my mind. How many players from that draft are NHL ready to jump into the NHL that next season? How many players do you think in this year's draft have the ability to make the jump?
It's tough to say based on how things will play out right in the short term after they are drafted. And if there's different development challenges in terms of the next level. But in terms of jumping in immediately, I think it varies year to year. And sometimes you'll see guys taken later who might be more NHL ready than someone necessarily taken above them. So I think when you're considering that, there's a lot of different things that get weighed. But I don't think it's consistent year to year or necessarily in terms of where a player gets picked, if that makes sense.
Instigators joining us right now on the show, Jeremiah Crowe. He is Rhymes, actually. He is the newly appointed director of scouting. Can we ask you about some current players that are in the system already? I mean, did you get a chance to go out and see or at any point see Dylan Cousins play this year?
I did not see him live this year, but followed him along in video, obviously watched him at camp and what he did with Hockey Canada and the strong season he had in the Western Hockey League. Obviously, he's on a positive trend, and we were excited about him when we took him last year. So, I mean, we're excited about the players we have in the system and looking to add to it, but obviously Dylan Cousins has done well.
Who are some other kids that Sabres fans, I say kids, I mean young men or whatever, but who are some of the kids, like the prospects in Roch or up and coming, that we can keep an eye out for?
I think we had a lot of guys that had strong seasons in Roch. Obviously, we had Casey and Tage Thompson playing down there, and Tage had the injury when he came up in a game versus Chicago. But those guys were certainly trending in the right direction and taking advantage of the opportunity. But there was a number of guys who had first-time looks in Olofsson and Asplund, and a lot of guys who had positive seasons down in Rochester and in Malone and Ogilvy. So I think a lot of players were moving positively, and those guys in particular stood out to me as I was watching Rochester and Buffalo in my travels doing pro scouting.
So what are different from what's the difference from kids nowadays? I mean, you worked at the NTDP, and you're director of player personnel there, so you get to learn and understand how kids think and act nowadays. Because, well, how old are you? What are you, 30?
34.
You're 34. So I mean, like, there's a big difference between when we played, even when you were in college, and when I was playing junior, to kids nowadays. So what did you learn there that helps prepare you for this job now?
The biggest takeaway, I think, from the NTDP was being able to watch, and Rivs can speak to this through his coaching experiences as well as you, PD, but being able to watch the same group of players across the whole United States for 2 years, ranging from 14 to 16, which are critical years for their physical development, and watching certain players who are further along in their stages of puberty, and certain players who you're evaluating and you're seeing sense and skill, but they might not be having success right away just due to their frame and their ability to hold up, and then watching that change over time, and then carrying that over and following not just the players that ended up on the NTDP roster, but players who went different directions or played another year of 16U hockey when others were in the USHL, or played prep, and just being able to follow their progression, honestly, for about 4 years, I think will be invaluable for me and directly applicable to this position. So
in all your travels through, and I know we say that you've talked or seen a lot of these young kids play, where do you view I don't want to say the best location to draft players from, but is there a certain specific area, whether like college, major, junior, USHL, NTDP, Europe? There's so many different areas to grab players now. Where ranks amongst the highest? I mean, because in Europe you have kids that are playing pro, and most kids over here are playing junior amateur.
Yeah. I think it does vary year to year. You can certainly go through, which we have information on how things shift from year in, year out, averages over the last 5 years. But it does change, and our interests are in bringing in the best players that have the best potential to add value to the Buffalo Sabres down the road and in the short term. And I think full coverage is essential. And again, going back, there's times where you have a ton of players coming out of one area, and the very next year you're going to see another league or level have a higher number of high-end prospects or prospects in general that are eligible for the draft. So I do think it shifts, and there's not one area of focus. We look at players all over the world in terms of who we're interested in.
So, go ahead. I
was just going to go and I agree with everything that you're saying. You know, the hubs and where that you're drafting kids. I think it completely varies from year to year. You know, you look at that 1 year that I think you were with the National Development Program. Didn't you have like a large number of those players drafted to the NHL, like in the first round?
Yes. Yeah, we had a big year with the 01s, which would have been last year's draft. And that's a good example because there's kids from kind of different necks of the woods, and there's also kind of developmental bottlenecks where you look what happened in St. Louis with the 98 birth year. A lot of sons of former players that had strong coaching and development their whole way, but while they were all together and from St. Louis, they all branched out and were playing all over the place, and those types of things are happening at every level all the time. So it does spread out.
Jeremiah Crowe joining us. So tell us, he's a new director of scouting for the Buffalo Sabres. What type of player? draft lottery tonight. Okay, so there's a lot of excitement around that. I think Sabre fans, could really use a boost to morale and move up into the top 3. If it doesn't happen, let's just say hypothetically they stay at number 7. Okay, let's just say there's always talk or potential of moving a pick to make whatever. I mean, let's just say Sabres go to the draft table. They make the pick at number 7. Not who can they get, but what. Not even type of player, but how far away, in your opinion, is that player at 7 from whomever you have on your draft board away from playing in the NHL? And what caliber of player are we talking about being able to get at number 7?
There's going to be a good mix of players in our range, regardless of how things play out tonight. But in terms of timeline, that's going to vary, and it's also going to be very situational depending on all the players or all the teams that end up picking before us. But our job is, in terms of what you're looking for, was the question originally asked, is to have a firm hold on the draft in its entirety from first to 7th round and be prepared for every situation that may arise. Obviously, the rating system values certain traits in players, and that's an internal thing, but even every player you see taken is going to be a different kind of mix of the qualities that make up a player. I mean, I always say hockey players are the sum of all parts, and certain players are going to have other traits that are made up for in other areas, and they're going to be strong here and maybe not as strong in other areas. So it's our job to put that together and figure out what we have the most confidence in.
So when you're going into this year's draft, let's just say that you do hold the 7th overall pick. There's a large number. You got Lafreniere and Tim Stitzel that are left wingers, Quentin Byfield, a centerman, Marcus Rossi. Then you have a James Drysdale, who's the number 1 ranked defenseman, and there's been a lot spoken about Jake Sanderson. There's a lot of top picks in all different positions. When you go to step up there to pick number 7 overall, are you looking at a certain position, or are you looking at, like I've heard many times, that you're just going to be picking the best player available?
Yep, we're certainly looking for the player that we feel is the best player available and who's going to fit with our organization moving forward, but we take every single thing into consideration, and we'll look at players by position or identity, who rates highly in certain traits, who might have best-in-class attributes. It gets dissected in multiple ways, but at the end of the day, you need to take the best player.
Well, how about one for the road, Jeremiah? You want one?
Is that
one
on
simulator?
Me?
Yeah, one simulator before we go.
Might as well.
Number two. You know what? This was a sign. Good luck tonight. Hopefully you guys get a high pick.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.